What is now known as a thriving shopping center used to have a history of controversy and mystery. This was an asylum, a place that housed mentally ill patients, but also changed all thoughts behind the Kirkbride hospitals.
Traverse City State Hospital was originally the Northern Michigan Asylum. It was completed and took its first patients in 1885. And it was a very busy, the largest operation, the largest employer in Northern Michigan for most of the 1900s, served a very important role to take care of our citizens who needed the care.
Thomas Kirkbride, born in Morrisville, Pennsylvania on July 31st, 1809, was the creator of the Kirkbride plan layout. This was a certain building layout for all of his hospitals. The plan was perfectly thought out and gave patients a space of their own with more people with similar needs, rather than what they would have had in other asylums. Kirkbride also published a book in 1854 called On the Construction, Organization, and General Arrangements of Hospitals for the Insane. This book was about how to successfully build a hospital for the mentally ill. The Kirkbride plan was built with 2 wings to provide sunlight to each room. The wings were also used to separate patients with different illnesses and severity of them. Patients' bedrooms were also quite large, which was said to help patients and their healing process.
The idea of the Kirkbride plan was to have patients separated by gender and on 2 wings coming from a central administration building. So there'd be, in this case in Traverse City, on the south side it's the men's wards and on the north side it's the women's wards.
Dr. James Decker Munson, born during 1885 in Oakland County, Michigan, was the superintendent of the Northern Michigan Asylum and was a believer in the beauteous therapy philosophy, and made sure that it was used in the Northern Michigan Asylum by planting trees to beautify the land, using china plates in the dining hall, making harsh punishment and torture not allowed, having plants, and inspiring letters in the hallways. He thought all these factors working together would make patients more comfortable away from their home. Most people that have had an experience with an asylum have had negative perceptions of them. Underground tunnels were also built to transport patients from one place to another.
It was a very big operation, but it was as self-contained as the state could make it back in those days. And they had a rail line to bring coal in to fire the power plant, but the vast majority of activities were done on site. The self-sustaining idea was the model that they were striving for.
Although some people were in disbelief that the mentally ill could be treated, Thomas Kirkbride disagreed and pursued his idea that patients should be properly taken care of and could potentially be healed through having a home that supported and worked to benefit patients, instead of torturing them just because they weren't accepted and were thought to be unsafe walking around the streets. Old asylums treated patients with pain and all sorts of torture, such as being put in cells, getting tied to chairs, cold showers, starvation, drowning, beatings, and being put into straitjackets. But instead, ahead of its time, the Northern Michigan Asylum used beautiful surroundings to benefit patients. When talking about mental institutions, the first thing that comes to mind is torture and the tragedy that was involved in it. And patients went through a lot of this before the Kirkbride buildings and plan. Most patients went to an institution because of anxiety, depression, and other mental illnesses that were not accepted at this time. But if you look up the verb for torture, you find cause great mental suffering or anxiety too. Everything patients had to go through on a daily basis made their illnesses worse, and people let this happen instead of wanting to find a better solution and helping patients like Thomas Kirkbride and Dr. James Decker Munson did.
Prior to the Kirkbride Plan and Dorothea Dixon, the moral treatment movement, there was a lot of abuse and neglect of people that needed help because of their mental illnesses. So I think it was an elevation of the respect for sick people and a respect for them as human beings.
Because of Traverse City only being officially founded in 1852, when the Northern Michigan Asylum was built, there were not many other buildings and roads, so the city was undergoing construction all of the time, making people not realize the effect that the asylum would have on the city.
The hospital really did affect Traverse City a lot. For most of its operation, it was the largest employer in the city. The lumber period was phasing out, and so Traverse City needed other industries to help keep the economy going and employ people. The state realized, because of the vast geography north of Saginaw, Midland area, it was really important to create a third facility to serve the northern part of the state.
When Advent drug therapy started to be used more for the mentally ill, asylums started to close because there was no longer a need for them. The methods of Thomas Kirkbride and Dr. Munson improved the care practices and built a model for all hospitals.